this morning. Has Flynn flipped? The former national security advisor asks for immunity. His lawyer says he has a story to tell. His past words, though, coming back to bite the White House.
When you are given immunity, that means that you probably committed a crime.
Inside sources, the mystery revealed. Intel Chairman Devin Nunes' secret sources for classified information, reportedly 3 people who work for the president. Our cameras catch 2 of them exclusively this morning.
I'm not talking about anything.
Plus, friendly fire. Trump takes aim at his own party, calling out members of the Freedom Caucus and threatening to work against their re-election. Well, they're firing back.
It may allow a child to get his way, but that's not how our government works.
And we begin today with this potential political bombshell. President Trump's former national security advisor offering to talk to congressional lawmakers. But what does he know? Why does he want immunity? And what could it all mean for this White House? I have a great panel to help me break it all down. Let's go right to NBC's Kristen Welker, who is live at the White House for us. So, Kristen, what exactly is Michael Flynn saying, and how is the administration reacting?
Well, Michael Flynn, the former ousted national security advisor, is agreeing to testify if he gets immunity. Now, I want to go back to a point that you made at the top, Chris. Look, asking for immunity does not necessarily mean that you've committed some type of a crime or that you have something to hide. However, ironically, on Meet the Press last year, Flynn said that it likely does mean that you committed a crime. So the optics of that, not great. But look, his lawyer sent out a statement last night saying that he wants to talk, he wants to tell his story, but the reality is this is a highly politicized environment. That's why he's asking for immunity. Here's part of what his lawyer wrote. He said, General Flynn certainly has a story to tell, and he very much wants to tell it should the circumstances permit. This is what President Trump said earlier today, Chris, in a tweet. Seems to be supportive of this offer for immunity, saying Mike Flynn should ask for immunity in that this is a witch hunt excuse for big election loss by media and Dems of historic proportions. So again, trying to revisit the 2016 race there, Chris, and cast this in a political light. But the reality is, just to remind our viewers, who is Mike Flynn? Well, of course, he was the national security advisor, one of Donald Trump's early supporters. Remember, he had a lot of fiery rhetoric on the campaign trail, particularly about Hillary Clinton. And then he was fired for, the president says he misled the vice president about having conversations with the Russian ambassador in which he discussed sanctions. Mike Flynn himself acknowledging when he was let go that he gave incomplete information to White House officials. So there is a cloud over his departure, and certainly a lot more information that investigators want to hear from him as they dig into potential interference by Russia in the 2016 race, Chris.
On yet another low-key day at the White House, Kristen Welker, thank you for that. I want to bring in Jason Osborne, Republican strategist and former senior communications strategist for the Ben Carson campaign. Ron Klain is a Democratic political analyst who served as former chief of staff to Joe Biden. And Paul Butler is a law professor at Georgetown University and a former federal prosecutor. So, Paul, I have to start with you because there's so many questions here. But let's start with what we heard General Flynn saying. He was talking about Hillary Clinton at the time, saying, look, if you're asking for immunity, probably you committed a crime. Does the same apply here?
Well, he would know better than anybody else, right? So let's look at the facts.
Okay.
He admits that he lied to the vice president of the United States. He was also questioned around the same time by the FBI. If he gave the same incomplete information to them, that's a federal crime. So now what he's saying is, I'll snitch if you guarantee me that I won't be prosecuted. So where there's this kind of smoke, is there fire? I wouldn't be surprised. You know, the White House for 2 weeks knew that he lied to the vice president. They didn't do anything. So it makes it look like there's something that he knows that they don't want out. If you're a federal prosecutor, if you're an investigator for the Congress, you definitely want to know what's up with it.
And they definitely say he knows something. Jason, I want to read you part of the letter from Flynn's counsel. No reasonable person who has the benefit of counsel would submit to questioning in such a highly politicized witch hunt environment without assurances against unfair prosecution. Is this him trying to protect himself from what is a witch hunt environment, or is this somebody who could be in trouble trying to protect himself from prosecution, or both?
You know, I think I take what his lawyer said and what he has said in the past at face value, in the sense that he's trying to protect himself, not necessarily, you know, I take issue with your words of snitch on the White House. I mean, he was in there for 2 weeks. He worked for the previous administration. He's been around government for a while. I think he clearly knows that he messed up. I mean, he admitted so much. He apologized to the president and the vice president. The president has said, go ahead and testify, give him immunity, let him testify. I don't blame the guy for asking for it, because who knows how these hearings are going to go, and the testimony that he gives, and how many different ways they're going to ask questions. I'd ask for the same
Ron,
thing.
if this is what he has to give, which is that what we already know, that he misled people at the White House about things that he knew and conversations that he had, do you think that's what's behind this? Is there a lot more to this?
Well, first of all, let's be clear about what the word immunity means. I think President Trump doesn't really understand that, because he's not asking for immunity from Democrats or immunity from a witch hunt or immunity from Congress. He's asking for immunity from prosecution by the Justice Department, okay? And so the question is, why would he need that immunity? It has nothing to do with, you know, press or Democrats or Congress. It's because he may have committed a crime that Donald Trump's Justice Department would prosecute him for. So that's what's on the table here. And he should only get that immunity. I mean, that's what immunity means. And he should only get that immunity if he has important information for the investigation. You know,
Jason, you're laughing, but that's right, correct? I mean, if you want immunity from prosecution, you're afraid you're going to be prosecuted.
But the last several years, we've been dealing with the previous administration, people coming in and pleading the fifth. You know, clearly that was an issue of them admitting, or at least to a layperson saying, we know that we've done something wrong, we're pleading the fifth here.
First of all, we're not talking about the previous administration, but we also have a president who ran on the idea that if you elect Hillary Clinton, what you're going to have is one investigation after another investigation, one scandal after another scandal. Where are we now with this administration, less than 100 days in?
Well, Flynn had already admitted, and this administration took care of that and fired the guy, and said that he had misled the vice president of the United States, and in effect misled the president of the United States. So for him to say that he's requesting immunity, that's for him to decide. I mean, to your point earlier, he's the only one that knows.
Here's my common sense question. My common sense question as the non-lawyer here is that if that's all he has, which is what we know, that he's already admitted that he misled people, is that enough that they're sitting down in a room at a table and having a conversation about immunity?
No. So they want to know, are there even bigger fish? Let's be clear. This is the National Security Advisor of the United States. So this is normally the kind of people you would try to roll lower level folks to get him. If he's saying that he has a story to tell, that's got to be about people higher than him, perhaps all the way up to the President of the United States. The issue is, was there collusion with the Russians? Who colluded with them? That's huge. Again, they're only interested in rolling him if he's conceding about people who are way up the chain.
Yeah, and I also think, look, bottom line is the president promised he would drain the swamp. We are 90 days, 70 days into an administration where the National Security Advisor, at the shortest tenure in American history of the job, had to be fired for lying to the vice president, is now asking for immunity. I mean, that is the swamp. The water level of the swamp is hitting a new record here at this stage in the game.
Okay, and all this about Michael Flynn breaking at the same time, there are a couple of bombshell reports that say, despite denials by the administration and the intel chair, Devin Nunes himself, White House officials gave Nunes access to key intelligence reports in an attempt to help validate President Trump's explosive claim that he was wiretapped by former President Obama. Now, it's important to note, NBC News has not independently confirmed these reports. They come from the New York Times and the Washington Post. Let's go live to Capitol Hill and NBC's Casey Hunt. Casey, a lot there. Break it all down for us.
There is a lot here, Chris, and this, of course, has been what Democrats have been insinuating on Capitol Hill for days, this idea that Devin Nunes essentially received information to lend credibility to the president's claims that he was surveilled by the Obama White House, and then taking that information and going to the White House with it. Democrats had long suspected that White House officials were the source of that information, and it seems as though these reports would confirm that. Important, again, to note that we have not confirmed here at NBC these identities. These are reports in the New York Times and the Washington Post. But those newspapers report that 3 officials potentially were involved in giving this information to Devin Nunes. One of them is Mike Ellis. He is a former aide, actually, to Devin Nunes in the House Intelligence Committee. Ezra Cohen-Watnick, the head of intelligence at the NSC, somebody who H.R. McMaster, the new national security advisor, actually advised to be moved out of the role. He was overruled. And John Eisenberg, the top lawyer on the National Security Council, the Washington Post reporting that Mr. Watnick-Cohen alerted him to the existence of this information. We caught up here at NBC News with a couple of these people this morning. Take a look.
Could you help provide Devin Nunes intelligence information?
I'm not talking about anything.
I have no idea.
Can you tell us anything, any information about the current investigation going on by Chairman Nunes?
Have a good day.
To the cameras this morning, and again, we are still working on confirming exactly how this information wound its way to Devin Nunes. Now, the Adam Schiff, the ranking member on the committee, did a press conference yesterday coming out and saying, look, if these people had found this information, why not just take it straight to the President of the United States? Why do it in this circuitous way through the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee? And of course, this has raised questions about the credibility of the Intelligence Committee's investigation. Chris.
Casey Hunt, thank you. I want to bring my panel back in. So I want to play what the House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi had to say about all this morning.
Why would the chairman of the committee go to the White House to get information that they could have conveyed to the president, bring it to the president, and then take it to the press? He was duped. Now, let's just give, that's the most innocent, most benign characterization, that he was duped.
Is it possible, Ron, that he was duped?
Hard to know if he was the dupee or the duper, but someone was duped here. After all, remember how this started. The White House announced that President Trump had been briefed by exciting new information from the House Intelligence Chairman about this ridiculous wiretapping charge President Trump made. And it turned out that information was from the president's own team. And, you know, I think the real scandal here may well be what the respected national security journalist Bart Gellman published this morning, that the way this information was collected suggests the White House itself may have been spying on the FBI, and this was an effort to launder that information and get it out into the public arena. There is something very strange going on here when White House staffers ask a congressman to come to get information and then have that congressman say that information was information he found and reported to the president. I've just never seen anything like this.
Jason, does this make any sense?
No, I mean, I think we're so intrigued by the process here that this information...
the process matters. This is about the process. It's about
nobody's talking about the information, but nobody's talking about the information itself. And that's what I'm still curious about is what is that information?
People have been asking Devin Nunes, including other members of his committee, what that information is, and he won't give it.
Well, and I think he will in due time. I can't speak to what plan he has internally, but I am confused about why it's such a big issue that folks that have information are providing it to the Intelligence Committee chairman who's investigating this. I mean, it sounds, how he got that information is, you know, up to him.
Do you think
to
if
decide,
it's meant to mitigate any damage to the White House and it comes from people in the White House, that's not a problem?
You know, outside looking in and not knowing...
And he's briefing the president on it when he's supposed to have an oversight role.
I think there's so much attention paid on President Trump, and when he announces stuff, tweets out things and makes comments on this, that anything that he says, the media is going to look at as suspect. So outside looking in, and I see that somebody is bringing in the chairman of the Intelligence Committee to say, look at this information, what do you think? And it's up to him to decide whether or not it's relevant or not.
But
and then for him then to go.
The integrity of the investigation. So look, we've got 3 branches of government for a reason. We've got a system of checks and balances for a reason. For a matter of urgent national security like this, the White House and the Congress aren't supposed to be hooking each other up for political reasons. They're supposed to be doing a search for truth to make us all feel safe about, again, we're talking about national security here.
But then we're going to talk a lot more, guys. Jason, Ron, and Paul are all going to come back. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about the White House and how it seems to be in chaos. Is there any way that President Trump can recover moving past these scandals? Former Press Secretary Josh Earnest will join me.